verses 21 through 28. Hear the word of the Lord. And they went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath he entered the synagogue and taught. And they were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one who had authority, and not as the scribes. And immediately there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. And he cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent and come out of him." And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying with a loud voice, came out of him. And they were all amazed, so that they questioned among themselves, saying, "What is this? A new teaching. With authority he commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." And at once his fame spread everywhere, throughout all the surrounding region of Galilee. This is the word of the Lord.
Play this scene out a little bit in Capernaum today. The text says that they went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus entered the synagogue and he taught. And they said they were astounded, surprised, taken aback at his teaching, right? That's what they're saying. Because he taught as one that had authority, or one that had confidence about matters of faith and life, or one that wasn't afraid to tell it like it is. He wasn't like the scribes, it says. We get that a little bit, right? It's the difference between listening to a person speak about their craft or their trade, rather than in an academic setting where a professor, their job is to see different sides, to offer different ideas, different opinions, different ways to see things. So our story continues. It says just then. Now we're only in Mark chapter 1, but what we're going to find out is that everything in Mark happens just then, or just now, or immediately. And so, just then, there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. We don't really use that distinction, right? I mean, unless literally the person needs some soap and water. We don't really use unclean, right? So what do we make of this distinction, unclean? So this is what David Luce says, a guy that I follow often online. Unclean could be seen as those forces that diametrically oppose God's will. So for example, rather than bless, they curse. Rather than build something up or someone up, they tear them down. Rather than encourage, they disparage. Rather than promoting love, they sow hate. Rather than draw people together, they seek to split people apart. And so if we see unclean that way, we might have to admit that we all have firsthand experience at being unclean, right? Because have we, let me just ask a few questions, have we on occasion been possessed, perhaps by anger at a colleague or a family member that has led us to say or do things that we regret? Some people are like, no, never. So, or how about this? Have we been possessed by jealousy and envy that has led us to use our resources in ways that we regret? Again, not me, I mean other people, not us. Perhaps we've had experiences where addictions have held us captive. Alcohol or drugs, gambling, pornography, food. Or maybe it's a prejudice that holds us in such a way that it keeps us from walking the path of God. It keeps us from, or it keeps us opposed in some way to God's way in the world, God's hope for the world. Or maybe what keeps us from God's way is more approved by society, like workaholism, or consumerism, or greed. You see, this demon idea, this unclean spirit idea, is not as foreign to us as we might think. If we're honest, we have almost all had experiences in our life where something is holding us back from being blessed or being a blessing to others. I imagine that we can all recall a time in our lives where we couldn't quite snap out of ourselves, right? Or snap out of whatever funk we were in. We couldn't pull ourselves out of the pit that we found ourselves in. And so go back to the synagogue that day. This person cries out to Jesus, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us?" So I can actually imagine the person saying, "Jesus, you're from out of town. You don't really know us. I mean, really, what do you know of us here? You don't know what we're like. Sure, I mean, your preaching sounds different, and it sounds like you really believe that God is here, right here with us. But if you knew us, you'd know that there are things about us that hold us back from this kingdom that you're talking about. We can't just get up and follow. We can't just turn around today, live a whole new way. We can't do that because things hold us back. We have other responsibilities, other things that kind of have us in their grip. And if you really knew what had us in its grip, you would say that we were unclean just like everybody else does. No one wants to talk about these things, Jesus, these things that hold us back, like how I can't get over my anger sometimes, or how my jealousy seems to overwhelm me. Maybe you don't understand, or maybe you don't realize that we don't talk about addictions where we are. Come on, Jesus. I mean, what really do you have to do with us? When the day is done, everyone's on their own. We're left to make our own decisions, to trust ourselves. Whatever you got, Jesus, I don't know that it has anything to do with me. So thanks for coming. It's been good. But we'll be carrying on just like we always do. Jesus comes in from out of town. He seems to really believe this kingdom thing, right? That God's kingdom is right here, right now. Really, Jesus? Right? Because put yourself in that synagogue that day. Take a look around, Jesus. There's no kingdom of God here. This is the kingdom of whoever has the best lawyer. This is the kingdom of whoever's got the most money or the loudest lobby. Jesus, it would be great. It would be great to think that we live in the commonwealth of God. We would love to believe that God is in control. But come on. Hey, Jesus, you want to know who's in control? Follow the money, Jesus. That's who's in control. It ain't you. It ain't me. And it don't look like God's playing the right game. Now, don't get us wrong, Jesus. We know who you are. I mean, you say you've come from God. And others say that you're God's son. You're different. We'll totally give you that. We're different. You're different. We're different too. You're different. People think, I've heard them say, that you might tip the scales toward justice. And maybe there's hope. Maybe good really will win somewhere in the world sometime. Maybe kindness will win. Maybe grace will win. That's what people are saying about you, Jesus. That's what we've heard. So it's at this point of the story where Jesus rebukes him and says, be quiet. Come out. Come out. Open yourself up. Let go of your unbelief. Let go of your cynicism. Let go of your doubt. Come out here. Come out of there. Come out of the box that you have created, the box that is how you think the world works, the box that doesn't work that way, because the world is much bigger than what you think, and much broader and much wider, and there are things that you can't see and you can't touch that are real. So come on out here. Come on into the light. Come here, because the kingdom is out here, not in there. And the story says that the man convulsed, right? Something broke in him. He yelled, or maybe it was more like a howl. Something changed, and he wasn't the same person anymore. He wasn't so full of fear or full of doubt. His cynicism went away. He was changed. He wasn't the same person that he was that showed up that morning for church. He was somehow free to live in this commonwealth of God. He was free to live in a world where God was in control. control, not his anger or his jealousy or his addiction or his prejudice or whatever it was. This person could have been any of us. Remember, his question was, what do you have to do with me? It's a really reasonable question, right? Jesus speaks of the kingdom of God being right here, right now. And we can all look around and see, it doesn't look like it. It doesn't feel like it. Or at least I don't see it. And so as followers of Jesus, we're hoping that Jesus, what he's saying is true. But there are days, I can't be the only one, where we wonder if this Holy One of God can make any difference in our lives or in the world around us. Is this power and authority that he seems to have, does it really have something to do with our world? Could it really take down the powers that we see in our world? Can Jesus really make a difference? Can Jesus' way of healing and grace and love and justice, can it win? Can it win? And what does that mean? I mean, really, can healing overcome the vast amount of sickness we see? Could grace wash over a frenzy, overworked world? Can love stomp out violence? Really, can it? Can justice, will justice, prevail over greed? What has Jesus to do with us? What has healing or grace or love or justice to do with this world that we actually live in? So I wonder this morning, do you have something that holds you from walking the path of God? What keeps you from living in the commonwealth of God? Do you dare come out of whatever that unbelief is? Of the cynicism, of the prejudice, of the anger, the addiction, the jealousy, the greed, the consumerism. What is it? What is it that holds you captive? Because God actually wants to reach each one of us, right? And help us find a way out. And the hardest part is realizing we probably need help coming out. And that's why Jesus says to the guy, be quiet. Come out. The reason we're stuck is because we're trying to do it on our own. We figure we'll come out when we're ready, but the truth is that we really need grace to come out. I need to know that it's going to be okay if I step out of the world that I've created. Will it be okay if I step out of this? Will someone accept me? Will Jesus be on the other side of this step? And so Jesus offered grace that day. It's an extended hand. You can see it. You can see. I don't even picture anyone else in that room anymore, right? It's just Jesus and this dude. He offered grace. He reached out to one individual who was unable to find blessing or be a blessing. And so if you find yourself in need of that today, of that specific invitation to come out, then come out. I think we see some of this grace, maybe most obvious at the table where we will gather, where everyone has a place at this table, that there is a seat saved for you, right? Right when we think, oh, there's probably not room for me. If God knew me, if God knew what held me back, if God knew what my limitations were, they would have to do something different to that table to make sure I could be there. But no, there is a seat for you. It's not my table, and it's not Grace Presbyterian Church's table. It's Jesus' table. And there's a seat for you. So come on, let's go to the table.